Most men are terrified of silence. They fill every moment with noise, distraction, anything to avoid the one thing that could save them. The man who cannot sit alone with his thoughts is a slave to opinions, a slave to validation, a slave to the endless noise of a world that profits from your emptiness. Solitude is not punishment. It is the forge where character is either shattered or hardened into something unbreakable. Tonight, we unlock the vault on the most neglected masculine virtue, the art of being alone, and what you discover might finally set you free. The empty room. Picture this. A man enters an empty room. No phone, no television, no music, just himself and silence. Studies from the University of Virginia revealed something disturbing. When given the choice between sitting alone with their thoughts for 15 minutes or receiving an electric shock, 67% of men chose the shock. They would rather experience physical pain than face their own minds. What does this tell us? That modern man has become a stranger to himself. He knows his social media feeds better than his own soul. He recognizes the voices of podcasters more than his own inner voice. All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Pascal wrote those words 400 years ago, and they have never been more true than they are today. The empty room is not your enemy. It is your mirror, and most men are terrified of what they might see. But here is where the transformation begins. Noise addiction. We live in the age of infinite distraction. The average person checks their phone 96 times per day. That is once every 10 minutes during waking hours. But this is not connection. This is medication. Noise is the drug. Every notification, every scroll, every background video playing while you eat alone. These are not choices. They are compulsions. The philosopher Schopenhauer understood this centuries ago. He wrote that man swings between pain and boredom like a pendulum. When we have problems, we suffer. When we solve them, we become bored. And boredom is so unbearable that we create new problems just to escape it. The noise is how we run from ourselves. If this pattern is resonating with you right now, hit like and subscribe to unlock more truths from the vault, because understanding this addiction is the first step to breaking it. The question is not whether you can be alone. The question is whether you have the courage to face what silence reveals. The Stoic path. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire in human history. He commanded legions. He held the power of life and death over millions. Yet every morning before dawn he sat alone, writing, reflecting, confronting himself. Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. The emperor understood what modern men have forgotten. External power means nothing if you are a prisoner within your own mind. Seneca, his Stoic predecessor, went even further. He practiced what he called voluntary discomfort, sleeping on hard floors, fasting, wearing simple clothes. Comfort breeds weakness, but his greatest discipline was solitude. He would retreat for days, examining his thoughts, his fears, his desires, not to escape the world, but to return to it stronger. The Stoics knew that a man who masters solitude becomes unshakable. He needs nothing from others to feel complete, and paradoxically, this makes him far more valuable to everyone around him. The shadow work. Carl Jung spent 6 years in what he called his confrontation with the unconscious. He deliberately descended into the darkest parts of his own psyche. He spoke to figures that emerged from his mind. He painted his visions. He nearly lost his sanity. He went where most men fear to look, and what he discovered revolutionized our understanding of the human soul. Jung called it the shadow, the part of yourself you refuse to acknowledge. Your anger, your jealousy, your secret desires, your hidden shame. Most men spend their entire lives running from their shadow. They project it onto others. They numb it with substances. They drown it in busyness. But Jung understood the profound truth. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Solitude is where you meet your shadow, and only by facing it can you ever become whole. This brings us to the deepest fear men carry: fear of self. Here is the truth no one wants to admit. The reason men avoid solitude is not boredom, it is terror. When the noise stops, the questions begin. Am I living the life I actually want? Have I become someone I do not respect? What have I been running from all these years? These questions demand answers. Most men are not ready to give. Kierkegaard called this existential anxiety, the dizziness of freedom. When you realize that you are responsible for your own life, that there is no one to blame, that your choices have shaped your reality, that weight can feel crushing. Freedom is terrifying, so we escape. We fill the silence. We surround ourselves with voices that are not our own. But the fear does not disappear. It grows. It compounds. It becomes a prison we cannot see because we have never stopped long enough to notice the bars. The only way out is through, and that requires something most men have never developed: building capacity. Solitude is a muscle, and like any muscle, it atrophies without use. You cannot expect to sit in silence for hours if you have never practiced sitting in silence for minutes. Start small. 1. 5 minutes of silence each morning. 2. 1 meal per week eaten alone without devices. 3. A weekly walk with no earbuds. 4. 1 hour of reflection before major decisions. These are not punishments. They are training. The Zen masters understood this. They would sit in meditation for hours, not because they enjoyed it, but because they knew what it built. Discomfort in solitude creates comfort everywhere else. Each moment of silence strengthens your capacity to be present. Each confrontation with yourself reduces the power of external validation. Each practice session makes the next one easier. Viktor Frankl, who survived Auschwitz, wrote that everything can be taken from a man except one thing: the freedom to choose his attitude. That freedom is forged in solitude, and it must be built deliberately. The paradox. Here is what no one tells you about mastering solitude. Paradox. The man who is complete alone becomes infinitely better with others. Think about it. When you need nothing from a relationship, you can give everything to it. When you do not require validation, you can offer genuine presence. When you are not running from yourself, you can truly see another person. The capacity to be alone is the capacity to love. Fromm understood that needy connection is not love. It is dependence. 2 empty people trying to fill each other will always fail, but 2 complete people choosing each other create something magnificent. Wholeness attracts wholeness. This is why the greatest leaders, philosophers, and creators throughout history cultivated solitude, not to escape humanity, but to return to it with something real to offer. The man who masters being alone never has to be lonely, because he carries his completeness with him wherever he goes. Slave or master, every man faces this choice. You can spend your life outsourcing your identity to others, letting their opinions define your worth, letting their presence determine your peace, letting their validation decide your value. Or you can do the work. You can descend into the silence and face what waits there. Epictetus was born a slave. His leg was broken by his master. He owned nothing, and yet he became one of the freest men who ever lived. His secret was simple. It is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about things. He mastered his inner world so completely that external circumstances lost their power over him. The chains are in your mind. The key is solitude. The choice is yours, but choose quickly. Because every day you avoid this work, the prison grows stronger, and the version of yourself waiting in that silence grows quieter, until one day you cannot hear him at all. The forge. A sword is not born sharp. It is forged in fire, hammered, heated, beaten, cooled, again and again until the metal becomes something that can never be broken. Solitude is your forge. Every uncomfortable moment of silence, every confrontation with your shadow, every question you finally have the courage to answer, these are the hammer strikes that shape your character. Nietzsche wrote about this transformation. He called it becoming who you are. One must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star. That chaos lives in your silence, and only by entering it can you emerge as something greater. The men who change the world are not those who fear being alone. They are those who have been alone so completely that they discovered something worth sharing. Your greatest self waits in the stillness you have been avoiding. The forge is ready. The question is whether you are brave enough to enter it. The invitation. Tonight, when the world grows quiet, you will face a choice. You can reach for your phone. You can turn on the television. You can fill the silence with anything except yourself. Or you can sit. Just sit. And listen to what has been waiting to speak to you your entire life. The answers you seek have always been inside the silence you avoid. I am not promising it will be comfortable. The first encounters with yourself rarely are. You will meet your fears, your regrets, your unfulfilled potential, but you will also meet your strength, your wisdom, your authentic self that has been buried under years of noise. This is your moment. The philosophers understood. The emperors understood. The survivors of unimaginable suffering understood. Solitude is not where men go to hide. It is where men go to become unbreakable. The vault has opened. The wisdom of the ages is yours. Now the only question that remains is this: will you do the work? Solitude is the forge where a man's character is either shattered or hardened into something unbreakable. He who cannot sit alone with his own thoughts will forever be a slave to the opinions and presence of others. You now understand what most men will spend their entire lives running from. The silence is not empty. It is full of everything you need. Your shadow waiting to be integrated. Your fears waiting to be faced. Your authentic self waiting to be discovered. The noise of the world will always be there calling you back to distraction. But you have seen the truth, and you cannot unsee it. If you made it this far, comment "forged in silence" to prove you are among the few who understand. The wisdom of the ages is yours. Use it well. If this unlocked something in you, subscribe for more treasures from the vault.